Good day, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are listening to from. It's the second episode of the Last Word on Rugby pod. Today, I got three guests because there's little rugby in terms of local rugby on for the weekend. We have three guests in studio with us. A special welcome back to Ashfaq Mohammed and Mike Greenaway, and then joining us, IOL sport writer John Goliath, a debut for you. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Leighton. Thanks for having me.
Morning, guys.
Morning.
Just guys, because we have absolutely no local rugby, I think it's a good change in pace. The guys need a rest. I think us as scribes, we also need a rest sometimes, and just focus on the softer stories of rugby. But if we can dive into it immediately, if it's been a welcoming break where we could assess the state of play in terms of the URC, where the South African teams are at, how they're going to stop a team like Leinster, who's thriving at the top of the URC log. Ashfaq, I'm going to jump over to you first. The Bulls are flying high, the best South African placed team at the moment, but in terms of what's waiting ahead for them, how good will this break be for them when they resume?
Yeah, thanks, Leighton. Yeah, it's a bit of a six of one and half a dozen of the other because they just come out of a four-game losing streak, beating Start Francais and now the Lions last weekend, and you wonder just now they're finally getting that momentum back. You know, the rhythm on attack in particular, even though they've lost Jan Goosen at fly-off there, Boeta Chamberlain did a good job, and then we saw last week Willie Leroux with a lovely cameo in the second half, really sparking the attack there, getting some good width and just mixing it up with the short passes and long passes. So you felt that the Bulls are now getting into rhythm and hitting their groove, and now they've got a week off. The benefits of a week off though is for those injured guys to come back from injury or those nursing niggles just to
Yeah, yeah,
have a
yeah.
breather. But also they had two big injuries now in Elrich Low, who's probably going to be out for a while, at least 4 weeks or so, if not longer. They're still waiting on a prognosis on that, but he's had an operation on his left knee already. So that's a huge blow for them because Elrich is a real combative guy who really gets stuck in on attack and defense as a ball carrier and tackler. But also Ruan Okia, perhaps even more crucially.
Yeah.
He just come back from a long layoff with a hamstring tear that he sustained with a box. And then, his influence just in a few weeks, he's been back. Jake White has spoken about how important he is to the team. And then he went down against the Lions last week, also with a knee injury. And we're still waiting the outcomes of that scan. Or I'm sure they've got the results by now, but the Bulls, I've been pushing them. They're still not, coming out on the record to say how bad it is. So perhaps they're still hoping to nurse that and that it's not as serious as it looked. But the line out is a crucial part of the Bulls game. So if they lose Nokia as well for a while, Elrich Lowe's also line out option at the back. That is a real blow for their chances going forward. But at least they have some confidence now going into the Stormers game, which is always a big one, and they always get up for that.
I was just going to touch on that. The Stormers, I think, down here in Cape Town will be a bit relieved, if I can call it like that. I know it sounds a bit harsh, but to have the sheriff out and not playing against you, laying down the law, as plenty a commentator calls him when he's carrying that ball up or when he's tackling guys back. It's and I think that's probably what the Bulls are also thinking in terms of let's keep the Stormers guessing. They mustn't know that we are willing to use Willie at 10, or we have this option to fill in for Ulrich if he's longer out, but he won't make it. Ruan, who you said, brilliant lineout option, and the Stormers lineouts are not functioning properly at the moment. So maybe it's a good thing for Jake White keep the Stormers in the dark for as long as he could. I know we don't like to be kept in the dark as media, but sometimes coaches have to do what they must do, eh? Mike, sure, it's now a very decent win for the Sharks. Overseas, they bumped Cardiff down the log to take up fourth spot. But now a 2 week wait for them to get back on the field. How's the feeling and mood about that?
No, they could not have been happier. I mean, when the Sharks landed at King Shark Airport for after that Cardiff game, it was like those last runners and the comrades getting to the finish line as the guys about to fire the pistol. I mean, they were completely running on empty. 16 injuries. They
Yes,
got
yeah.
a big cup, obviously, in Bordeaux. Then they had, they emptied that tank. They just thought one last full
Push,
out go, and then we've got a 2 week holiday, and that's exactly what Plumtree said. Giving the guys 2 weeks off because they are sore, they're battered, they got 16 injuries, so they're not even training. They're just having 2 weeks just to completely recuperate. And Plummer said, all I want is just to get some bodies back, and then I can, have some consistency in selection, and try and get a run going. So they were just absolutely delighted to get that one in Cardiff. Now have 2 weeks off and try and regroup thereafter.
Yeah, that's the lekker thing. If you look at that 2 week break, it's the perfect chance for some of the guys to just get away. Some of the guys who's had a lot on their plate. I see Sia Kolisi has been down in the Cape. I'm not gonna say that he's signing certain things, but I see he's been signing
I think he's
bills
probably
for.
visiting Cape Town Stadium, Leighton, begging Double to
He's
take it back.
he's signing bills for coffee dates and things like that, just getting away from rugby. And I think for our players who's been on the road quite a lot, that's a very good thing. John, shifting down here to the Cape, yeah, things don't look too good here at the Stormers. Losing Mani Libbok, not playing with the fly off after that. The game just went to pieces. There was Warwick tried from the back to drive the attack, but just nothing happened. Do you think that there's scope in terms of not having someone like Mani if he's not playing? Is it a scope to try someone like Warwick at 10 who can drive your game, or is the option Yuri Matia to fall back on and play a more conservative game?
It's I mean, Mani going down is yet another blow for the Stormers. That's their third playmaker down. If
Yeah,
you take into account that Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu's out, Damien Willems is out, so it's basically bare bones in terms of that
it's tough.
playmaking out. And everybody was saying before the tournament that they have too many playmakers.
Exactly.
But now they're basically down to Warwick. I would keep Warwick at fullback because I don't think you want to disrupt it too much in terms of your back division. Warwick also, I think, at his best position when summing up the field. Of course, when you have a guy like Yuri Matias starting there's also an option during the game of a Warwick going into that first receiver role. And that is when you give Warwick the freedom, I think that is when
Yeah.
he's at his best, when he can pop up in certain situations, and just play what's in front of him. Unfortunately for the Stormers, I think at the moment it's a big blow in terms of Mani because he's really the driver of their game plan. And we all know when he's on the day, their game plan, which is to move the ball, to get those offloads away, try and maybe move the opposition's pack around the park because Mani can do that with his hands, but also with
At
both
his
feet.
feet. Yeah.
Very underrated kicker of his left foot, so he can do those cross kicks. He can kick it long for those 50-22. So he's a enormous blow, and I think they, as soon as possible, they need to get at least one or two of those three big guys back in terms of Sasha, Damien, and Mani.
Yeah, it's the
Guys, if I
same.
could just quickly comment on that, Leighton, John Lee. You will be shocked to hear this from me of all people. But don't you think the Stormers should cut their suit according to the cloth in this situation. Because, they don't have a Mani Libbok, they don't have a Damon Willemse, they don't have a Sasha Feinberg in Komazulu. Yet they're going to keep on pushing the envelope. Of course, we all want to see that play with width, try the audacious little chips, long passes out wide or so. But, if you don't have those kind of guys, and you've got a Yuri Mathieu who's got a big boot, can win you territory downfield, can get the ball to guys like Johnny Roach and those guys who are now in the center to truck it up. Perhaps that is the way to go, because I think they still have a very competitive pack of forwards who can get stuck in there. They've got some big ball carriers there. And perhaps that could be the way to go in the meantime until those sort of superstar playmakers come back. Because, that has been always a frustration with the Stormers. They get so carried away sometimes, even when all those guys are on the field. It's like too many cooks spoil the broth there. And you don't know what's coming and what's happening. I mean, Warwick Galan, brilliant player, but do his teammates even know what he's going to do next? I don't think so. Of course, that's the brilliance of the man, but sometimes you need to just rein things in a bit. I'm playing devil's advocate here, but I really think, that could be a solution for the Stormers at the moment.
Yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
Ashwin, because at the moment with the Stormers, there's no middle ground. They are either spectacular or they look really, really bad. And some of those mistakes are costing them. What I think is that they still have the players on the outside who I think they are trying to get into the game. I think at the moment, as far as contestable kicking, that can also be an option because they've got Suleiman Hatzenberg and Zas who are very good in the air. So you
Brilliant.
might have a point there of maybe varying their play and maybe, be a bit slightly more conservative than we have been used to over the last couple of years.
I can tell you guys now, there's not going to be any conservatism against the Bulls on the 8th of Feb. They're going to run the Bulls, and it's going to be up to the Bulls to try and break that duck at the DHL Stadium.
And that game is 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Exactly, and that's why they're going to run. And the thing is, they're waiting on Mani to, well, he should be fit. It didn't look too bad, the knee injury. They rather took him off as a to keep him in cotton wool. But Dob also said he couldn't run, which is not a good sign. But they took him off before he pushed himself further. But come the 8th of Feb, that's going to be a very interesting game, and we're definitely looking forward to that. The DHL Stadium is a fortress so far against the men from the north, but I feel they are in for a first win there if they do get at least that one lineout option back, and if they play Villa at 10, I feel that's going to be a lovely game. Guys, if we can shift on, I think there's the matter of there's quite a few youngsters in the URC at the moment that's been impressing. I can just take a look at a bunch of guys at the Lions. Some of them who's received their debuts, but then others who are totally just working their magic in the Lions pack and then at the back as well. I know the Lions sort of pulls on the back udders of of the South African rugby cow, but still, four early wins in the competition, they still look good. They look good in patches against the Bulls. Just went away from them. But if I can get your takes on some guys, some youngsters who you think over the next couple of months, it's 6 or 7 games for the respective URC teams who can impress still. Who would you like to see impress ahead of an international season?
Maybe I can start off. I think there's one guy at the Sharks that has been consistently good as Ethan Hooker. He is, he's built really, for explosive power. He actually reminds me of a guy, Clyde Rathbone, similar bull, similar kind of way he plays. Remember the Durbanite who went to the Wallabies.
Went to the Aussies, yes.
Yeah, they play quite similarly. And the thing with Ethan is he can play 12, 13, 14, 11. And we all know how Rassie likes versatility. He's already been to an alignment camp. So I think that guy's got Springbok written all over him. I can't think of too many more at the Sharks. I'll hand the baton over to you, Asfak, who impresses you.
So, well, just quickly at the Sharks, Ranger Julius, of course, another
Oh, sorry, man. Yeah,
exciting talent.
thank
I
you for
mean, him
reminding
and
me.
Nico
Absolutely.
combining, eh?
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, to have them in the Sharks midfield together is I'm not sure it's happened yet. I think it's happened for part of a game.
Yeah.
But wow, that could be a long-term possibility at all levels.
Just in terms of the Bulls, I think that someone like Reinhard Ludwig is someone to look out for. He's had a few injury problems, but he really impresses me whenever he plays, and he's still a young man, only 22, and he's able to play lock, 4 and 5 lock, and blindside flank. So that's a really impressive skill set to have. He's now being molded as a lineout caller as well, and certainly with Ruan Nokia's injury, I would think that he would be the next in line there, because they've got this youngster, Jay van Heerden, who was a junior Springbok number 5 lock, and he didn't do too badly early in the season, but of course it's his first campaign in
Yeah.
senior rugby. So, it was a bit tough for him to step in there when all those other guys were injured. But now with Ludwig back, I think he could really develop into a fine option as a 5 and a 7 in particular. He just seems to be in the right place at the right time. He gets stuck in physically. He's able to carry the ball out wide and up close when it's really tight, and put in big hits. And Jake White, I know, rates him quite highly. So, this period now coming up is a chance for him to shine, and perhaps even put up his hand for Springbok selection. If he really does well against all the other South African teams, there's no reason why he can't be part of the mix for the July test.
John, anyone down here in Cape Town or up at the Lions that you think has really shown what they can do in the URC and can push them further in this last couple of months of franchise rugby?
I think towards the end of the previous season, maybe the start of the season, I like what I saw from JC Pretorius in an option maybe to have build him up as a successor to Kwagga Smith. But JC Pretorius is already 27 at the moment. So there's his chance gone already. Is there still a spot for him? I think so. In terms of what he can offer off the bench, in terms of a similar role that Kwagga Smith plays. But I think Stormers wise, I think there's two guys I've really liked for a long time, and that's Suleiman Hudsenberg. I think he's got the complete game. Even maybe as an outside center.
As a 13,
We all
100%.
as a 13, because I think he's also a guy with great game awareness, which is very important. Number 13 jersey on attack and defense, but also a guy who can basically beat the defender, take that outside gap, the old fashioned outside gap, Ashfaq, the flecky style back in the day. And also then in the pack wise, I would love to see a bit more of the Evan Roos, maybe the 2022 Evan Roos. That was just unstoppable. I think yes, he's coming back from a long-term layoff. He's going to need time in the legs, but I still think Evan Roos at his best is probably the best number 8 in the country. And I'm talking about guys playing in South Africa. We know Jasper Wiese is in possession of that jersey. There's an Ulrich Low there also can play 7 or 8. But for me, Evan Roos, a dynamic runner, is powerful. He's a guy that can hit hard. If there's maybe one flaw to his game, is maybe the discipline side of it now and then. But for me, at his best, he is simply a great rugby player in the mold of maybe a young Dwayne Vermeulen. He can also steal the ball on the ground, and he's dynamic. He can hit hard. He's abrasive. So yeah, for me, over the next couple of months, I would really like to see Evan Roos just getting back to his best.
Don't let Evan hear you saying that his temper and his discipline is maybe a thing. He's vowed that he's turned a new leaf. He's turned the corner with that.
I hope so.
And
I genuinely hope so.
I asked him that recently when before they played Racing, knowing that those big Frenchmen will try to get under his skin, and he chirped me back saying, "Did you see with the Sale Sharks game when there was a massive brawl on the field?" He told me, "Did you see me walk away?" And he
Yeah,
almost mic dropped. Yeah,
he
and he
walked to
almost
McDonald's. Followed by suicide.
he walked to the McDonald's parking lot, staying out of the fight. So yeah, I think that's and that came over the months he was down with the injury. Um he knew he had to change not his game, but something else in his game. Not being that guy that pushes the guy's face down in the ground after he's tackled him, and so far so good, and that's lovely to see that maturity that he's come back with when he returned from his injury. Speaking about the international scene, guys, it's time for the Six Nations. The second tier of international. I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking. The North's top competition. We know it's all about the rugby championship
The
down there.
Irish fans are gonna come for you, Leighton. They're waiting for you.
They must first get past England this weekend, then they can speak. But in terms of the clashes, that one is the mouth-watering one. It's Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. Tomorrow there's France and Wales as the opener for the tournament. Do you think our head coach guru slash bomb squad inventor will have his eyes glued to the Six Nations, or do you feel that he knows everything that he needs to from the European side so that he can get up on a plane with a box in November and go take on France and then Ireland, who should be that decider after drawing that series 1-1 last year?
Maybe before we get to Russie, and he certainly will be glued. Just an observation about this Six Nations. It is the 25th anniversary since Italy joined, and you're talking about how we focus on the rugby championship, but thinks it's the best. I mean, those guys overseas, they think that the rugby championship we Johnny come latelys because it's only been going since 1996. The Five Nations started in 1883. So, it is a tournament that has massive history. It's got a heritage all of its own, and they're so protective of it overseas. In Europe, they really cherish it, and they kind of look down on the rugby championship, even though the World Cup is
Yes,
almost always
indeed.
won by a rugby championship team. But yeah, no, just in terms of South Africa's observation, and Europe want us to remain observers. Of course, they don't want a Southern Hemisphere team now to come and dilute their famous European history. But yeah, look, you know, the South Africa's biggest opponents obviously are going to be involved here. Rassie wants to see what France, are they evolving? Ireland, or have they maybe their balloon has popped? Are they on the way down? England or a team that's on the way up. I think they're a dark horse. People mustn't discount them. So yeah, there's plenty of stuff. I mean, every single weekend of the Six Nations, we can soak up so much information.
Ash, if you can chip in here.
Yeah, I just want to see England once and for all actually standing up and backing up all their talk. They've got
Yeah.
all the resources, most celebrated teams. Europe, they're so pernickety about that, and SA teams in the Champions Cup and all of that. Put your money where your mouth is and beat Ireland and beat France and win the Six Nations, then we can really take England seriously. I agree with Mike. They are on the way up, and they've brought in a couple of fresh faces as well into their squad in the last year or two. So that's exciting to see. There's a new wing, I think Caden Murray or something like that, on the wing this weekend. So let's see. And the Curry brothers, of course, in the loose trio there. New captain official captain now in Maro Itoji. So let's see if they can actually dish it up this time around.
Yeah, if I could just quickly add something onto that before we move on from England. It is, of course, the last chance saloon for Steve Borthwick. I think it's his third year now. He came in just before the last World Cup. If they don't do something now, because they like this team of nearly men, they do so well in games and then they can't close them out. They look like they've got, big games won, and then they just collapse in the last 10 minutes. And, if Borthwick can't coach them into now, doing the whole 80 minutes and actually closing out games, then I think they're going to move him on. So, yeah, I think last chance to learn for the coach.
John, can you kick us off with some predictions? What do you think will Trump? Okay, maybe I shouldn't say Trump, but who will come out tops in the Six Nations? It's quite tight up top with
Donald Trump's in your head, Leighton.
with Ireland, France, and England all gunning for it. Do you see any other surprises?
Yeah, I think it's going to be between Ireland and France again. France have gone through their own sort of internal squabbles over the last couple of months, but they are still a quality team. As we saw that they beat the All Blacks during the November tour. I see Ireland also a team in transition, basically, following the World Cup. They've obviously lost Johnny Sexton, so it's another year to try and, as a Jack Crowley, for them to try and get back to number one in the world. It's going to be interesting for me to see what sort of rugby is dished up. What we obviously know it's the Northern Hemisphere. It's this time of year. It's cold. It's rainy, but it's honestly I just want to see what sort of rugby is dished up with the new laws coming into it, and with basically everybody also building towards the World Cup. But I think first of all for the home union teams, it's also a chance to impress ahead of the British and Irish Lions tour of Australia. So that's another subplot to the Six Nations. But I fancy France, Ireland, to especially Ireland in their first game at home against England. I think they should get over the line there. Wales, we all know Wales terrible at the moment. They are rebuilding again under Warren Gatland. And then I think Scotland, Italy, that may be the tightest game of this round. I fancy Scotland to pull it through there, but I don't see really anybody coming close to Ireland and Wales, and it's going to be between those two for Six Nations glory.
Ash, are you agreeing with John? What's your take?
Yeah, I want to see Italy do a bit better, man. I've been pleased with Benetton's progress in the URC, and they always seem to be competitive in that, but the same goes for Italy. But I know there's been an odd win here and there for Italy in the Six Nations, but let's see if they can get more than one win this time around. And for Scotland, Mike spoke about Steve Borthwick at England. Gregor Townsend at Scotland, he's had all these some big stars from URC and Champions Cup rugby. Glasgow won the URC as well. So, wins are gonna translate into title success. There's a lot of fans of Franco Smith. Should be the next Scotland head coach. So this could also be Gregor Townsend, perhaps a last chance for him to show that he should continue as a Scotland coach.
Yeah. Listen, if I could just maybe bang that France drum one more time.
Okay.
For me, the side I really want to see, what are they going to do? Because last year, let's face it, they had one almighty World Cup hangover. They, they were really poor. I mean, that hangover was so bad that DuPont went to play in the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
Um, and they were poor. I think towards the end they maybe came back a bit and were a bit better. But their Galactico sides in the Champions Cup are unstoppable, playing rugby from another planet. Bordeaux and Toulouse. Now that hangover from the World Cup is no excuse anymore. I'm really interested to see what they deliver now. So they could run away with it, but like John says, it'll be between them and Ireland. I'm pretty sure unless England can put a run together.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's quite difficult for me to say this also, but I think Ireland's a package at the moment, and with all the players they have, they might have, as our good friend uh is it Matt Williams said, they lost the world's best tight end in Tad Furlong. I could name him four different tight ends in South Africa. That's a bit better. But yeah, I think it's going to be Ireland's to lose in terms of just the players that they have, the players base, and how well they've been playing together. Gents, thanks again for joining us, and lending us your thoughts and views on not just the URC but the box and the international scene that's about to start on Friday night. It's been lovely chatting to you again, and we will do this next week when we have some Six Nations action to look back on, and then also the preview for that North-South derby down here in Cape Town.
Cheers. Thanks a lot,
Yes,
guys.
guys. Bye.
Yes, guys, that's awesome.
Yeah, thanks for listening to another episode of the Last Word on Rugby pod. We'll be back with more action, more news, and hopefully soon there'll also be a bit of news on the box as they start to prepare for the international season. There's a couple of rounds left of the URC before we can move on to international rugby, and it's bound to be a good 25 for all our teams. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.